Good afternoon and welcome to our Masterclass on Sustainable Organization Innovation. We'll be looking at regenerative open innovation ecosystems through the lens of dynamic systems maturity theory and how it's operationalized in Organization Capability Maturity Framework. The Organization Development Tools Institute is a research institute which focuses on the whole area of organization development, organization change, transitional and transformational change, and builds a body of knowledge and tools to help leaders and managers manage more effective change in today's modern world. My name is Declan Kavanagh. My background is in the ICT sector where I've worked for over 40 years, involved in both hardware, software and services, working for multinationals and also entrepreneurial startups. Currently I advise nationally and internationally, and I'm the managing director of the Organization Development Tools Institute. My colleague and co-founder, Dr. Myles Sweeney, has a background in the whole area of psychology and finance as it reflects and is used in the whole area of organization development and organization change management. He's a leading author, an advisor in Europe, and has particular skills in the whole area of organization learning and psychology, change and transformation management, and is the principal researcher for dynamic systems maturity theory, which he published some years ago. We'll look at a brief introduction, which I'll present and then hand over to Myles. We'll look at some scene setting. Then Myles will introduce dynamic systems maturity theory and the organization capability maturity framework as it refers to innovation in an organization and innovative ecosystems. He'll look at what kills innovation and how do you build regenerative innovation ecosystems using a very interesting case study. And then we'll wrap up by looking at how you use reference models and maturity. So there's a lot of stuff happening in the world today. Traditionally, we might get one major change that creates volatility, uncertainty, and complexity. But today we have global trade wars, we have Brexit in Europe, we have social unrest in certain geographic regions, we have the emergence of new digital models and digital transformations, we have environmental change, and more recently, of course, we have the crisis caused by the coronavirus. Change and transformation are pervasive in organizations and essential to survive and thrive. Technology is often the enabler or the driver, and we've certainly seen that in the last couple of months since the crisis started. Organizations more and more need agility and innovation to actually survive and to be ready to recover the ground and continue to grow following this major crisis. Today we will talk about dynamic systems maturity theory, which is a scientific means of understanding and improving human systems. Obviously, an organization system is a human-based system. So it explains how they function, why they perform at specific levels, the nature of their culture and their learning and development processes. The dynamic systems maturity theory is the next generation of change management and transformation. And it has unprecedented scientific depth and scope. In fact, it's been identified as the only capability maturity model that is underpinned by a management science theory at present. And it's operationalized through the Organization Capability Maturity Framework, which presents roadmaps for building agility, innovation, collaboration, improving productivity and leadership. And it provides means to diagnose the existing critical capability maturity, um, and to calibrate actions that will bring traction to the change, and ensure that the changes that are implemented are sustainable. As a quick view of what it looks like, this is a master dashboard for the core 15 dynamics, each of which is underpinned by between 5 and 8 constructs, which are the capability building blocks. And this is a visual indicator of how it can be presented, the dynamics and the constructs at each of the 7 levels of maturity that are based on dynamic systems maturity theory. So let's look at what happens during a crisis. We have to move into through a number of different phases. The initial phase is, the quick fix and the rescue phase, of which many organizations have already been through. Then we need to stabilize the business and the organization before we look at how do we reshape it for the medium to long term, and then get back to scaling it. And obviously the key is getting through this process quickly. And the way we do this is like any other significant problem we're trying to solve in a business or an organization is do the analysis, build a plan, and then execute the plan. As we look at the current environment that organizations exist in, we have 5 key objective or aims areas that we must focus on as a priority. We know that the future does remain still uncertain with a lot of complexity. So we need to build agility in our organizations. We know and we have seen that technology is enabling solutions to the existing problems and allowing us access the environment and the ecosystems, gathering and scanning for data and information so that we can respond quickly. So building capability in this digital world is essential. And as I said, understanding what's happening in the market and our market and the environment is a critical success factor. And it's very dynamic at the moment. So we can leverage technology to do this, but we can also obviously leverage technology to build our agility and to reconfigure our products and services to meet the changing market needs. Of course, financial management is a constant concern for most organizations now. Many have had their cash reserves depleted and maybe have had to raise equity or go into debt. But the key thing is, as we set the aims and ambitions for the organization, is to make sure that we have aligned our financial capacity with our ambition. And finally, we need to maintain or build new advantage. So we need to frame this in the context of our organization. And the means we achieve this aims is through the new world of work. And we need to understand the changes that are happening in the workplace, whether they're physical or digital, for individuals and teams, and make sure that the traits of the work dynamic are all addressed through the changes. We also know that teams are being reconfigured. We have a lot of remote working. So we have new virtual teams and hybrid teams. And they need to go through a development process. It's not good enough just to assume that you give somebody remote access and their team will continue to function as is. So the Organization Development Tools Institute has a number of reference models, and the primary reference model and body of knowledge is the Organization Maturity Index, and this guides individuals and teams through improving the core capabilities that the organization requires to manage through the change and the reconfiguration and to reshape their business going forward so it can scale. And as we can see in this simple dashboard, there are a number of development phases and you cannot skip phases. We see the maturity scale from crash 1 up to leadership level 7. And the other reference model is the team maturity index. And this is a team reference model and body of knowledge and a set of capability maturity assessments, which build on existing models that are already out there, but have enhanced to take into account the organization dynamic, the team dynamic, and the individual aspect of team development.
Hello, everyone. I'm Myles Sweeney. This slide that we're going to show captures what's wrong with organization paradigm at the moment and where the maturity modeling is so important. We're putting together research from McKinsey and other people here, Spain and Gary Hamel and a few more. But here we can see that 51%, McKinsey in 2017, the reference is at the end of the presentation, find that 51% of organizations, over half, are trapped or in startup mode. And we have another research that shows that if you're at this level, well, you're averaging 500% discount to the market average. Now, that's catastrophic, that half of our organizations are like this. And you see the DSMT maturity levels on the second column on the left, inversion critical comfort. We're really not halfway up the model here. It's terrible. These are the cultures that are captured: social, authoritarian, and inverted, which is, inverted is exploitative, whatever. And then we come to what Gary Hamel will be focusing on, this idea of a bureaucratic organization, and 27% are caught within this band. This bureaucratic organization that has no agility and no prospect of agility. So we have 78% of our organizations are at these sub-agile levels. And that's why the 75% failure rate persists for change management, is because there is no change capacity within organizations. The higher levels of our model, only 22% reach these levels. And the averaging premium is 300%. But as you can imagine, the competitive level is really reacting to market. Creativity is bringing innovation into the market, but leadership is taking charge of the market. So at those levels, we have much higher than 300%. But it is a terrible indictment of management paradigm and practice that this is the distribution amongst organizations. difficulty and died. Look at a brief glimpse of what is meant by unprecedented scientific depth. This is the psychology. I could show you the organization science, the economics, and so on. But see all the different schools of psychology, the different phases that are incorporated in this model. It even gives a schematic explanation for the clustering that has emerged in the personality disorders, for which up to now there has been no explanation except statistical correlation. This is a brief look at the team. We also have a team maturity index as well as the organization maturity index. These are the team behaviors, if you like, of the different phases. The correspondence then with Tuckman or CMMI. But of course, there is far greater depth, far greater definition in the DSMT modeling. The organization's innovative goals, well, internal advantage, market advantage, customer advantage, and strategic advantage, which gets you beyond this competitive level, as we've discussed. Now there is an enemy, and we've briefly looked at some of this in terms of the habituations. In the United States, this is extraordinary. More than 35% of the workforce are working in firms with more than 5,000 people. These are large, bulky, cumbersome organizations. Frontline staff work under 8 layers of management. This is Hamill and Zanini referenced at the back of the presentation. So neurotic linear mindset and culture of command and control is predominant. Inverted or dominant leadership associated with an average discount to market returns. Keep this in mind. With these figures, you're getting a lot of this at work. I love this quote on the status quo. Bureaucracy defends the status quo long past the time the quo has lost its status. Open innovation is we need to research this as not just an idealistic positioning. Open innovation is positively correlated with integrative culture and negatively correlated with this hierarchical culture, which is at the lower end of our model, this toxic leadership or dominant leadership, critical singularity, and so on. So now we come to our case study, and the case study is a company called Haer, and believe it or not, they're in China. And they are the envy of the world. There's a lot of research being done on them. The company went from a position in the early 2000s, I think, from being near bankrupt to being a global leader in domestic appliances sector. And they're rated in the top 10 global innovators by Boston College Group, isn't that it? BCG, yeah. Their core business growth of 23% per annum, just get some figure, that's it from 2009 to 2018. Revenue growth 18% per annum, 2 billion growth from new ventures, employs now 70,000 people worldwide, profits of over 4.26 billion on turnover of 34.6 billion. This is a critical insight, zero distance between all employees and customers. This is a quick snapshot of the company overall, where they've come from, what captures the main cultural effects. The global system with only 2 layers of management between frontline teams and CEO. Well, that's way beyond bureaucracy anyway, isn't it? Open innovation system of energetic entrepreneurs, users, inventors, and partners. That's the critical thing to understand. Everybody is a stakeholder. User, inventor, and partners are all part of the system, and it's seen systemically. The ecosystem has gone from being a siloed empire kind of basis to 4,000 micro enterprises of 10 to 15 people each as autonomous teams. That's small, vibrant, vital teams. 200 transforming micro enterprises, regenerating, for example, web-enabled customer centricity. 200 transforming, 50 in incubation, or entirely new MEs at any one time. These are, for example, wrapping new business, smart technology around familiar products, for example. Now, 3,800 nodes, and these are MEs, these are micro enterprises selling component products and services to its market-facing MEs, right? So these are your HR, your finance, those sort of backup kind of services. But MEs, the micro enterprises, are free to form and evolve with little central direction, but share the same approach to target setting, internal contracting, and cross-unit. Okay, little central direction, as we'll see in greater detail. That's the difference with bureaucracy. These are autonomous teams, and they're of self-direction. They're not directed from any internal centralized position. So how does this work? We look at it through the model, and the point is that Many people have looked at this company and walked away without, any idea of how to create a company like it. It took a couple of decades for it to go. So this is off-putting to many people. We have the opportunity with this new model to examine it in detail, to put the development into a developmental process. So what does creative disruption look like? Annually, these market-facing microenterprises appraise performance and ask, what sort of design, technology, production, and marketing support will we need to meet leading goals? And then they ask these nodes, these HR and finance and all these kind of people for bids, the technology people and so on. This is regenerative process. Why? Because it refreshes existing practice. They're going to these people newly every time. These people have to improve themselves every time as well, and it surfaces new approaches. This is completely anti-bureaucratic, and it is facilitated by, as we'll see later, this idea of presets, predefined rules of how things are done. Nodes that are unable to provide competitive service can and do go out of business. Can you imagine? In your typical institutionalized organization, that would be unheard of. What about disruption to incubation? Let's have a quick look. An internal entrepreneur posts an idea online and invites collaboration. The platform leader, and these are guys who are in charge or are overseeing areas of the business, divisions of the business, like web-enabled business and so on, that kind of stuff, invites insiders and outsiders to submit proposals for exploiting this white space opportunity. Prospective entrepreneurs pitch ideas at the company roadshows, which connect. These are three different ways, three different paths. The third is the prospective entrepreneurs pitch ideas at company roadshows, which connect local innovators with platform leaders and members of the company's investment. And so these are three very different methodologies. And the numbers in 2019, it's 50 incubating MEs accounted for more than 10% of market capitalization. What kind of renewal is this? What kind of disruption is this? This is quite dramatic. And the range of these companies are from a fintech startup to express cabinets, a network of storage lockers. It's quite incredible, the range that they cover of their platforms. Okay, so our third level, as we remember, is onboarding our population, is the socio-emotive. Well, how do they do it? Well, it's very easy. I mean, it's proven that they do this because of the expansion in their acquired companies, for example, General Electric appliances. But the overarching philosophy here is called humanocracy. And you may have to read about humanocracy to get a grasp of it, but it is literally doing everything that is to facilitate the best of human behavior. And that is very core to the DSMT as well. We have a model of how people learn. We want to make organizations congruent with that model, so you have absolutely seamless learning within the system. Now, the self-actualization is extraordinary. That why did this Haer company materialize like it has? The leader is obviously, I would think, the reason. Some people ask, how come it materialized in a communist country? That's another question. But the leader is key. His goal, his main philosophy is around this idea of self-actualization. So, I mean, this is a dream for organization development people. It should be anyway, because this is bringing behavioral science to organizations. Self-actualization is the pinnacle of personal achievement. It is a person feels fulfilled and as a self. This self-expression level that I highlighted at level 6 of our model. This is where the people are at. Now, here's a critical thing. People are made very aware that the goal is to create a system of leaders. Now, if you're not up to that and you don't want that, then it's not the system for you. That is their attitude. So how does DSMT 4, how does the process and procedure level look in this system? All MEs are organized into platforms based on common categories of products or capabilities. Predefined rules, as we call these presets, are used to facilitate the competitive processes by setting expectations around profit margin, splits, standard performance, etc. So these are predefined. Everybody knows where they stand on everything that's done, even though it might look a mess from outside. And this is what creates fear in institutional people looking at this kind of an organization. But there are underlying processes that guide the general behavior. They share the same approach to target setting and so on. From incubation onwards, they're separate legal entities. From the very earliest point, these boys are separate legal entities with possible self or outside funding, and the company has preset buyout options to gain majority stakes in these companies. So you see, it's not just willy-nilly. There's a lot of structure, and everybody knows the structure. They contract arm's length agreements with internal and external suppliers, etc. This is all in our level 4 in our organizational system. This is where organization kicks in. This is, if you get stuck here, remember, this is the bureaucratic level. This is the bureaucracy at the heart of this company. It is vital though, because if it's not producing results, whatever MEs in question they're got rid of. So again, this is another critical thing. The resourcing process. Everybody's bidding for these resources, but the platform leaders, their process, it has to be seen to be fair and transparent, and that's what keeps the thing open and everyone can renew each other. If you fail in a bid and you come back for more, you can come back with a renewed team and so on. And that's the point. That last point. So also the technology that they use is exemplary, and one of them is a leading edge industrial internet platform, and that ties up across borders even. It is an internet platform that is tying up half of China, I think, really. Example, laptop for gaming. Okay, so a disruptor employee and 3 colleagues have an idea. There's a gap in the market. I remember reading the case study, and the platform manager was adamant he didn't think there was an opportunity here, but he decided that that's not his role. His role is to facilitate, so rather than make decisions like that, so he gave them a little bit of funding, and this is how it started. 30,000 online competitor reviews. They reviewed 30,000 online competitor offerings and revealed 13 pain points. To secure the seed funding to market test, the collaboration, they collaborated with outside companies. This is an extraordinary thing. They'll even get companies to share their patent material. Produced the products in 7 months that sold well. The company investment increased. The team took a 15% stake. This is an important thing. Ownership is at the heart of this holacracy or humanocracy philosophy. When they brought in the VC, they took the 15%. And in 3 years, the product was called Thunder Robot, and a staff of 80 went public, etc., valued at 180 million, regenerated its own spin-offs. Okay. So at 5A, we're into our competitiveness. We have to have this interaction with the market, this dynamic learning from the market, and it is at every level. It's your technology, your people, etc., and your culture. But the marketing is interesting. The marketing platform's primary role is seen as supplying customer information across the system. It integrates from all ME information to systemic big data. They have this technology that uses this big data to reveal cross-business insights, predict where things are going. And the thing is, here there's a financial stake for everybody. If you have an ME, a node that's supplying a service to one of these customer-facing MEs, you have a stake in their success. You have a financial reward arising from their success. So also, everybody, smart network devices are leading edge when they're sharing these software platforms. So the entire system, the customer, the seller, everybody is part of the ecosystem, giving back research and so on. At a 5B level, this adaptive complexity, this customerized culture, again, we mentioned before, these market-facing micro-enterprises are free to buy services or not. The whole system is dynamic learning. They're not funded without customer proof. The market, if it doesn't give them some proof of their viability, they're not funded. They decide, the customer-facing MEs decide when to go it alone or seek collaboration. So they're making these dynamic at singular and team levels rather than central. The node revenue depends on the ME success. All of this kills mediocrity. It unites everyone towards enhancing customer experience. It maximizes flexibility. Okay, so to organizational advantage, this is the idea. We move from the competitive level where it's about selling, interaction with the market, of course. We're moving now to the innovation, this innovative level, the creative, the self-expression level. This is every market-facing microenterprise is also expected to make a transformative leap from selling to building an ecosystem. That's expected of every team. The example there, you can read it in your own time. Utilizes the finding that only gain sharing and autonomy. This is a critical use of research. The research finds that you give people autonomy on their own, on its own, it produces so much, but it's not transformative. You allow people to share in the gains that their work brings to the organization. That in itself is not transformative either. But the two together are, and that is what is utilized in this company. The leader, this is CEO, his name is Chairman Shang. He's a devotee of Peter Drucker. And again, he highlight again this self-actualization is the critical thing. It's not maximizing shareholder value. He says ownership shouldn't be handed out. However, it needs to be earned. And this paper that this is coming from is a paper by Dylan in last year. So self-management and team actualization. We move from self-actualization to team actualization and autonomous people to autonomous teams. So the strategy of each team, they as far as strategy is concerned, they decide opportunities to pursue, setting priorities, forming partnerships. In terms of people, they can hire, they can align the roles, define working relationships. If an ME is reaching baseline targets but not its VAM, which I'll define in a moment, it's a bit beyond that, a 2/3 majority vote from members can oust the leader, and then they can market around to see who can replace the leader. Remuneration, they can set their own pay rates and redistribute bonuses. The baselines are set and outperformance reward is proportionate to excess. Now this VAM, value adjusted mechanism, if an ME achieves, for example, a midpoint between quarterly baseline and leading targets. Now their leading targets are, they're way out there. They're really beyond stretch targets. The team's bonus is actually doubled. Personal investment is allowed, and it receives 100% dividend on success. Their personal investment is matched, and they get double the reward. Beating a VAM for 4 consecutive quarters qualifies for profit sharing at 20%, and this can exceed even 40%. So this is quite the autonomy of the team is quite well supported. Systemically enabled open advantage. Input is taken for innovation is taken from the whole system and the world at large in terms of assessing needs, concerns, etc. And they utilize social media sites, of course. This is very interesting, a global network of solvers to address challenges in all domains. They're not just within the company, there's no self-reliance here. There's a global network of solvers both within and outside the organization. More than 200 problems are posted each year on this thing called HOPE. It's the Haer Open Partnership Ecosystem. So they just put up these problems and see what materializes. Proposals are vetted. 33 institutions contributed to the development of an air conditioner. So the problem was put up there, something about a new air conditioner. 33 institutions contributed to the development. And you can imagine it was an instant success. Business partners share patents, I think I mentioned this before, for sharing reward from the final product. The approach reduces time from concept to market by 70%. This is dynamic learning at a hell of a pace. Crowdsourcing is used at each phase of development, even offering prototypes for sale, which provide further feedback. So the product isn't really level, but it's worth something to somebody. They're sold off, it's used, they get feedback from it. This is a crowdsourcing of information at every phase of the development. And guess what? If they see talent, these institutions or whoever, if they come across talent in this open system, open innovation system, they obviously take it on board. So integrative leadership. The platform owners are leaders who facilitate, they don't direct, they facilitate microenterprise teams in exploring opportunities for collaboration. Note there are no linear reporting structures. We don't spend much time on this presentation talking about linear and integrative, but as you can see, linear is about bureaucracy and command and control. This is about integrative. Our higher levels in the model are integrative levels. The lower levels are disintegrative. So we are not linear. Excuse me. So the integration nodes and platforms, they help in MEs import technologies. This is about integration. This is about people, leaders everywhere. Everybody is a leader, and they're all involved in integration. So this is what we mean integrative leadership. And of course, it's collaboration rather than control. Integrative leadership, this idea of win-win positioning, and they track the transformation of every ME with a win-win value-added statement, which captures detailed metrics such as the extent of the user involvement in product development, the degree to which the products offer unique customer value, and so on. So this win-win characterizes their philosophy entirely. So every market-facing ME is expected to eventually build a business ecosystem. I think I mentioned that before. Like their market-focused siblings, Node MEs have leading targets that are pegged to external events, so they too are measured on performance. And this idea of leaders everywhere is something that the DSMT has taken on board quite a long time ago in its formation. There's a paper in 2013 I did, which you can read at the end, but everybody is a boss. And end users are bosses in terms of people reacting to what the end user wants. They are directing the research and product development. But the regenerative leadership, the highest level of our model, the idea of mergers and acquisitions and spin-offs, well, obviously we've seen how these spin-offs, they're micro enterprises that are legal entities from the beginning, and they progress to being spin-offs. The company is a merger and acquisition powerhouse, acquiring, as we mentioned, General Electric appliances. Excuse me a moment. So the spin-off process, it changes organization as network. This is the idea that the spin-offs become part of the network of organizations. And remember, they're being enabled by common IT platforms. So everybody is engaged in this network now, and everybody's feeding into the environmental scanning that is critical to feeding requirements while what's happening in the marketplace back into the system. So regenerative platforms, obviously, pioneering disruptive ecosystem economics, which we're not going to go into here, but the DSMT model of macroeconomic development certainly does. Regenerative ecosystems as platform systems, the platform era, which we are talking about now, it starts with a modern, highly scaled computing platforms, but with supporting platform protocols that allow ecosystem members to cooperate. So the idea of platforms, this can also involve AI, augmented reality, 5G, etc. And especially the platform-based communications and information technologies. So they have developed these massive platforms that cover large sections of the consumer environment, all feeding information into a company that is renewing itself constantly. A platform in our Western culture, well, Amazon, a leading example of a platform ecosystem. Its e-commerce platform involves millions of partners and hundreds of millions of customers. With each purchase, each new customer, each new partner, the value of the ecosystem goes up for all parties, as well as Amazon. So we understand that. And it's not just a team structure, it's a team of team structure on these platforms. It reshapes organizational structure from linear to macro system of progressive dynamic subsystems. And, how do you describe this? How do you capture it in a model? And it's like expanding solar systems. There's nothing linear, there's nothing circular, there's nothing lateral. It is expanding units all the time that bring in with its own energy other units like a galaxy spinning and so on. So building such organizations, DSMT itself is operationalized on its OrgCMF platform. Note, for example, integrative innovative leadership as culture, embedded integrative process and level of developmental systemic functioning across all capabilities. This is the point. If we were to measure that organization higher on our model that you've seen earlier, it would be 7s all the way. And the point is, across all capabilities, innovation is not a single capability. It is a capability. It is a level of capability. It is that innovative level 6. That is your innovation level across all capabilities. And only DSMT models this and operationalizes it. Here we are. Here we have an exemplar company. Many have studied it, but they're turned off. by the idea of the mess that they see. They don't see the structure. Well, DSMT provides the structure. It provides, to linear people, it provides a step-by-step process to get from where you are to where you need to go. Humanocracy is presented as new management philosophy. And, you know, the champions of humanocracy, Gary Hamel and Myles Sweeney, they use this quote: embedding the principles of humanocracy, ownership, markets, meritocracy, community openness, experimentation, and paradox in your organization's DNA is the way forward. Now, I throw in this note, even DNA is a regenerative sequence. But it is not enough. It is not enough to simply say to company A, do X, Y, Z. You know, copy what works elsewhere. That is at the heart of what is wrong with our change management and OD paradigm. It doesn't work. It doesn't work to just transfer something that has worked somewhere else into every company. I recently was at a webinar, and a consultant, is talking about what Amazon are doing to a company that's 100 people in it. I mean, this is ludicrous, but you can customize using the DSMT processes. And unfortunately, you know, this idea of a blueprint, this idea of what elements go into your organization. We look at Haer and want to capture the elements. This is actually perpetuating that linear copying approach. It's elemental also. This is not how you do things. All of those elements have to be put in a certain sequence of development and learning to support them and take them to the higher levels. Now, another person who was writing about Haer has produced this line. He says, the evolution from a conventional institution like Haer was in 1984 to a platform-based and horizontal organizational system must be handled like the reconstruction of a reef or the transition of a town to a city, adding the right elements in the right order at the right pace. Now, where is the model to do this? No other model exists to do it except DSMT. Now, I disagree with the idea of horizontal. Just because it's not hierarchical does not mean it's horizontal. Horizontal gives you the sense that it is a lateral kind of company, and that is not the case. It is an integrative company. So Haer is the product of informed, visionary, regenerative leadership. That's what it is. That's it. That this guy Shang, he led this from start to finish. It would not have happened if it wasn't for him. So, but DSMT is the product of scientific research, and it presents the growth path as normative sequenced process across capabilities that can smooth development and trim Haer's timescale for whatever level of ecosystem or organizational maturity your client organization requires. So Hamel and Sweeney also say the most consequential thing Haer have done is to humanize its management model. Well, therefore, efforts to sustain and develop it should avoid the error of the paradigm up to now. They should follow the DSMT model of human system learning that is normative to all levels of socioeconomic system. The DSMT model is essentially a model of human nature. It is essential as a system, as a learning system. And surely, if you are going to humanize your management, then your model to do it should be a humanized model. And that is what DSMT is.
Having listened to Myles discuss the emerging insights into how you build innovation and how you build regenerative innovation systems, let's look at the model and how the model can help. Our research and research in general shows that the current capabilities that exist in an organization at their existing maturity levels determine the current performance, and they also determine the rate of change, and that means it determines the agility of the organization. And we build an integrated plan to improve or add new capabilities and build maturity. And that's what we need to do to make sure we achieve our target performance and we improve agility. Ultimately, that leads to better outcomes for the organization. And the three streams that need to be addressed as we look at the building this regenerative innovation is leveraging the organization maturity index to build organization agility. leveraging the team maturity index to build in a cohesive and sequential process that follows the learning process of an organization or human system to build our new teams. And finally, to build our digital capability. And that will give us the greater resilience in the organization. So we're aiming at building the right capabilities to the right maturity levels to achieve the target outcomes and have a robust, resilient model for the organization going forward that can handle the VUCA environment. We measure the maturity level, we set the priorities and targets, and we're guided by the model which calibrates our actions so that they gain traction and they're sustainable. So here's a look at the Organization Maturity Index. There are 15 core dynamics, which are the forces that influence the performance and functioning of an organization. And each is underpinned by specific constructs, which are the building blocks. And we can measure at any of these constructs or dynamics. And one level of measurement is the sensor level, which is a single question at the organization. And it's usually just to determine or get a feel for where is the organization at or to signal a change. We can then work at a more executive level or a triage level, and we can do capability maturity assessments on one or all of the dynamics or any mix of them as appropriate to your organization. However, as we go down into the more frontline teams, there's often a necessity to diagnose and drill a bit deeper into each of the dynamics and look at their specific building blocks or constructs. So we can also measure each construct or do a maturity assessment on each construct or any combination of constructs. And finally, in exceptional circumstances for some of our clients, we revert to our research platform where we do a deep diagnostic, and that uses 15 levels of analysis that you would have seen earlier in Myles' presentation. The Team Maturity Index is a team-centric, and it's focused on using dynamic systems maturity theory to build strong teams and to help them improve their effectiveness, looking from 3 dimensions, which are the core 3 dynamics of the Team Maturity Index. And as you can see here, we have the organization influence on team effectiveness. Then we have the team and its process itself. And then we have the individual performance within the team and how they influence and impact team effectiveness. So just kind of to summarize, we have the dynamic systems maturity theory, which is based on core research in learning theory, psychology, systems theory, and economic theory. And that gives us our solid understanding and a model from which we can help develop human-based systems, of which the organization is a basis. On top of that, then, we've built a practical application toolkit, which is the organization maturity framework. And that is underpinned by a reference model, bodies of knowledge, the assessment tools, and most importantly, guidance on action. And then sitting within the organization maturity framework, which gives us a standard for our bodies of knowledge, our models, and our assessments, we have the specific reference models. We have the Organization Maturity Index that I introduced earlier, and we have the Team Maturity Index, which I also introduced earlier. And in the next couple of weeks, we'll be launching a beta version of the Digital Maturity Index. These are the references we used in the conversation. If you have any other further questions, don't hesitate to contact us.